The training yard was already alive with dust and tension long before sunrise. Steel targets clanged in uneven rhythms, boots pounded gravel, and orders sliced through the cold morning air like knives. Recruits moved in formation, shoulders tight, faces locked in that fragile space between determination and fear. Among them stood a figure who did not seem to belong, not because she was out of place, but because she appeared too ordinary to draw attention. Slim frame, calm posture, eyes that watched instead of reacted. The combat instructor noticed her immediately. He leaned against a crate, arms folded across his chest, scanning the fresh batch with a practiced gaze that had sized up hundreds before them. His smirk grew when his eyes settled on her. "She's just a rookie," he muttered to another trainer nearby. "Won't last a week out here." His words carried, and a few recruits exchanged glances. She heard it too. Of course she did, but her expression didn't change. She simply adjusted the strap of her gear and stepped forward when her name was called. The instructor barked the first test, endurance drills across uneven terrain, crawling through mud trenches, sprinting with full packs, hauling weighted dummies. Recruits stumbled, cursed under their breath, fought exhaustion. Yet she moved through it with quiet precision, not rushing, not lagging. Her breathing stayed steady, her focus remained fixed. Hours passed, sweat-soaked uniforms, muscles trembled. When the whistle blew for the marksmanship evaluation, relief flickered across several faces. For most, it meant a chance to do something technical rather than physical. For her, it was something else entirely. The instructor handed out rifles, watching closely. He kept that smirk when he reached her. "Don't worry," he said loud enough for others to hear. "Just try to hit the target. No pressure." She accepted the weapon without responding. Her hands checked it instinctively, weight balance, sight alignment, trigger tension, small details unnoticed by those around her. The firing line stretched ahead under the glaring sun. Targets stood far enough to challenge newcomers, but manageable for trained shooters. One by one, recruits fired. Some shots hit wide, others barely clipped edges. When it was her turn, she settled into position. Silence fell around her in a way no one consciously recognized. Her breathing slowed, her gaze narrowed. The world beyond the scope seemed to collapse into stillness. She fired. The shot struck dead center. A second followed, another perfect impact. The instructor's smirk faded slightly. She fired again, and again. Each round cut precisely into the same tight cluster, tighter than anyone else had managed that day. By the time she finished, murmurs rippled through the line. The instructor stepped closer, inspecting the target. His expression hardened, though he masked surprise beneath authority. "Lucky grouping," he said flatly. "We'll see consistency tomorrow." She nodded once, calm as ever. That night, barracks buzzed with whispers. Some recruits were impressed, others skeptical. She sat on her bunk, cleaning her equipment methodically, ignoring the chatter. For her, validation or doubt were irrelevant. She had long ago learned that reputation was built in silence, not argument. Days turned into weeks. Training intensified. Night operations, tactical simulations, long-range shooting under unpredictable conditions. Again and again she delivered results that unsettled expectations. Still, the instructor kept his distance emotionally, never praising, never acknowledging more than necessary. To him, discipline required restraint. Yet he found himself watching her more closely than the rest. Then came the advanced evaluation, a scenario designed to break confidence. Extreme wind conditions, shifting light, extended range. Even experienced shooters struggled. The recruits lined up. One by one they tried and failed to maintain accuracy. Frustration grew. When she stepped forward, the instructor folded his arms again. "Let's see if the rookie's luck holds." She didn't react. She simply adjusted position, calculated wind drift, accounted for distance. Her trigger pull was smooth and unhurried. The impact rang out, center mass. She recalibrated, fired again, another precise strike. A third shot, perfection repeated. This time the instructor said nothing. He couldn't. Something inside him shifted. Not admiration yet, but recognition. Later, files were reviewed. Records checked. Background verified. And that was when he learned what no one had bothered to announce, that she wasn't simply another trainee. She was already known in certain classified circles. Her operational history spoke of missions executed with surgical precision, hostile zones navigated without error, and long-distance eliminations that had saved entire teams. She wasn't learning fundamentals. She was refining mastery. The next morning, he approached her without the smirk. His tone carried respect now, subtle but unmistakable. Why come here as a rookie? Her answer was quiet. Because legends don't stay legends by standing still. From then on, the dynamic changed. Word spread gradually, not loudly, never officially, but enough that recruits looked at her differently. Not as competition, as inspiration, yet she never embraced attention. She trained harder, pushed further, and treated everyone as equals. Months later, during a simulated deployment exercise, conditions mirrored real conflict zones. Chaos, uncertainty, unpredictable threats. The team relied on her calm leadership and unmatched accuracy. Decisions she made prevented casualties. Precision she delivered secured objectives. And on the final day of evaluation, the instructor gathered them all together. He addressed the group, voice firm but thoughtful. Every class teaches something new. This one reminded me never to underestimate anyone standing on that line. Skill doesn't announce itself. Sometimes it arrives quietly, and proves itself through action. He glanced at her briefly, acknowledgement enough. As recruits dispersed, she paused at the edge of the training yard, looking across the terrain that had once greeted her with skepticism. She allowed herself a small smile, not of triumph, but of satisfaction. Before leaving, she recorded a message for viewers following her journey, a habit she had adopted to inspire others far beyond training grounds and battlefields. If you're watching this story on her battlefield legacy, remember, strength isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself capable. Subscribe if you believe in resilience, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Every place, every voice, every journey matters. She turned away then, stepping toward the horizon of her next mission, leaving behind a lesson etched into memory, that appearances deceive, assumptions fail, and true legends often arrive disguised as rookies. The transport rotors thundered overhead as dawn burned through a pale horizon, and she sat motionless inside the aircraft with her gear secured and her rifle resting across her lap. Around her, conversation rose and fell, fragments of nerves, excitement, bravado, but she remained quiet, her focus somewhere beyond the present moment. Missions had a way of compressing time, stripping away unnecessary thought until only preparation and instinct remained. For her, the noise faded into nothing. She was already where she needed to be mentally, calm, steady, alert. This deployment was unlike training grounds and evaluations. Here, consequences were tangible. The terrain stretched unforgiving and vast, scattered with unpredictable threats that demanded precision and discipline. The team depended on coordination, trust, and the ability to adapt under pressure. She had been selected not because of reputation, but because her consistency had proven invaluable when situations turned chaotic. Her calm steadiness under fire was not a myth, it was the reason others breathed easier when she was near. When boots finally touched the ground, the shift from anticipation to action was immediate. Orders were exchanged in clipped tones. Equipment checked again, positions established. The landscape felt alive with tension, as though every shadow held intention. She moved with her squad, scanning surroundings, calculating distance and elevation without consciously acknowledging the math unfolding in her mind. Years of discipline had turned observation into instinct. Their objective required surveillance first. Patience defined success. Hours stretched into silence broken only by the whisper of wind and faint communication signals. Many underestimated the mental endurance required to remain focused that long, but she embraced stillness. It was in quiet observation that she felt most grounded. Her rifle remained ready, her breathing controlled, her awareness attuned to details invisible to casual eyes, subtle shifts, movements, patterns forming where others saw randomness. Eventually, activity confirmed their suspicions. The situation escalated swiftly. Decisions had to be made within seconds. Her team repositioned, trusting her calculations as she adjusted vantage points and relayed precise information. Each movement reflected coordination built on confidence rather than hesitation. When engagement became unavoidable, she acted with deliberate control. Every action balanced efficiency and responsibility, every choice grounded in protecting her team and ensuring mission success. Those beside her felt the reassurance of her composure, the sense that chaos would not dictate the outcome while she remained focused. And when the operation concluded, relief replaced tension. Objectives were met, everyone returned safely. Back at base, recognition came quietly. No grand speeches, no dramatic celebration, just acknowledgments from those who understood what steady competence truly meant. The instructor who once dismissed her as just a rookie offered a nod that carried more weight than any applause. Respect had replaced skepticism entirely. But her journey didn't end there. She continued forward, mission after mission, building not merely a record of precision but a legacy of resilience. Stories circulated, accounts of impossible distances mastered, of critical moments where clarity prevailed over panic, of leadership that guided others through uncertainty. Yet she remained unchanged at her core, humble, focused, driven not by fame but by purpose. Between deployments, she shared reflections with those following her path from afar. Sitting in a quiet corner with camera lights dim, she spoke not as an untouchable figure but as someone who had struggled, learned, and persevered. People often think legends are born extraordinary, she said softly. But what truly shapes us are the moments no one sees, the effort, the doubt, the determination to continue. If you're watching this on her battlefield legacy, know that strength isn't reserved for a chosen few. It grows in anyone willing to face challenges and keep moving forward. Subscribe to the channel if stories like this inspire you, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this journey reaches. Time moved onward, carrying her through seasons of growth and change. She mentored newcomers, offering guidance once denied to her by assumption and skepticism. She ensured no trainee felt underestimated or dismissed without opportunity to prove themselves. In doing so, she transformed the environment around her, turning doubt into encouragement and competition into unity. Years later, when her achievements were spoken of openly, they carried a tone of admiration mixed with curiosity. How had she maintained such precision? How had she endured pressure without faltering? She answered simply: discipline, patience, and belief in something greater than individual recognition. Her legacy extended beyond skill. It lived in those she inspired, in confidence she fostered, in lessons she left behind. She demonstrated that perception does not define potential, and that quiet determination can overturn expectations entirely. And when she finally stepped back from active duty, the world she left behind bore marks of her influence. Training methods refined, standards elevated, attitudes reshaped toward respect and openness. She walked away without ceremony, content knowing her impact endured in actions rather than accolades. Standing once more before the camera for her final message, she smiled, not with pride alone, but with gratitude for every moment that had shaped her path. Every story has an ending, but legacies don't end. They continue through those who listen, learn, and rise. Thank you for being part of this journey here on her battlefield legacy. Don't forget to subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because every voice reminds us that inspiration crosses borders. She switched off the light, leaving behind a narrative woven from perseverance, humility, and courage. And somewhere, perhaps in another training yard at sunrise, another underestimated recruit would take their place, ready to prove that legends often begin where doubt is loudest.